Hi, my name is Mary, and in today's video I'm going to be sharing with you a nonfiction micro-review of this book, Boom! Mad Money Mega Dealers and the Rise of Contemporary Art by Michael Schnayerson. This is a new release from this year, and as soon as I saw it, I put it on my art history TBR and included it in that video, and then went out and bought my own copy because I was so excited about it. This book is something that I read while I was on vacation in the middle of July, so I've had a little bit of time to think about it from the time that I finished reading it to writing this review, and I just keep getting more and more excited by it. And if you stick around for a couple of minutes, I will tell you why. This is a contemporary art book that is a little bit different from other contemporary art books that I have read. On that art history TBR video, I shared a book that I wanted to read, one of the newer ones from Thompson, who is another author of the contemporary art market that I really enjoy. And so when I saw that Thompson had indeed recommended this book, yes, think of the book as a 400-page Vanity Fair article. That's his personal review of it. I knew I had to pick this one up. One of the reasons that I like it so much is that it actually does something quite different than Thompson's work. Rather than focusing on the art market as a kind of holistic organism, which is something that Thompson does with kind of panache and flair and a great sense of humor, instead, this book focuses on four of what Michael Schnayerson calls the mega dealers in the art market. Right now, the mega dealers in the art market that he describes are Zwirner, Gagosian, Worth, and the Glimchers. So he has these four particular art dealers who he believes are the big movers and shakers in the art market today. I will start off by saying that this is a book which already assumes you're kind of on board with the whole contemporary art thing, and you already know quite a bit about it. So, for example, there's no pictures in this book. It's not an introduction to, say, some of the big names in contemporary art, like Jeff Koons and Damien Hirst and Cy Twombly. Rather, it expects that you already know them and know some of the still quite famous, but not quite that level where I think most people are aware of them. Artists like Oscar Murillo and Arthur Jaffa, those kinds of artists. This book assumes you are already on board with that whole train. Rather, since it focuses on the dealers and on the history of dealing contemporary art, starting in directly the post-war period up to now, it focuses on their world. As such, it does some really interesting things, including going down a bunch of different rabbit holes, including, Austrian inheritance law and the Manhattan real estate market. I think that turns people off a little bit of this book, reading other reviews of it, because some people just want the story of contemporary art, which, as I've said, I think there are other authors that do that better, and that's not what this book is even trying to be, so for me that doesn't feel like a fair criticism, but I do understand where it comes from. This book, one of the great things that it does is because it is able to go down so many different rabbit holes like that, it really does give you a sense of all of the different factors that go into these art dealers who are in turn shaping our cultural landscape as we know it. What does it mean for art dealers when suddenly all the cheap real estate has moved from Soho to Harlem, that sort of thing? What does that mean for the dealers and their business? What does that mean for the artists and for the communities who suddenly have all of this gentrification happening to them? These are really big, important questions that we should really be embracing if we're going to talk about the art market more holistically. This is not a perfectly flawless book, and I'm perfectly okay with that. One of the things about it that I found a little bit troubling, however, was the big focus on Larry Gagosian. Larry Gagosian is probably the biggest of the four art dealers, and he certainly has the biggest media presence. He is definitely a character, and he has a great story as well. One of the things about Larry Gagosian's story that makes him so compelling is, for a lot of people, I guess he would be kind of the American dream. He came from poverty, he pinned up just posters on a fence and sold them like that, to becoming this mega wealthy, very important art dealer. And so for a lot of people that would be admirable. But he's also just such a nasty person, but in a way that he gives really great media sound bites, so of course he's going to reference him quite a bit in here. For example, one of the stories that I find most compelling about Larry Gagosian is that when asked about Leo Castelli, who was his first mentor in an actual gallery and where he got his start from, what was the most important thing that Leo Castelli gave him, that he took from Leo Castelli from working with him, Larry Gagosian quipped, his clients, mostly. And that just really does give you a little bit, I think, of a sense of what Larry Gagosian is like. And so you can see why such a character would be so easy to write about, but it does also mean that in the course of this book, we really don't get quite as much from some of the other mega dealers. Similarly, I don't think that Michael Schnayerson does a great job at phrasing what he thinks qualifies somebody as a major dealer. Especially when it comes to things like art fairs and auction houses, there are a lot of different components to selling art nowadays that just the focus on these 4 mega dealers, I think, requires a little bit of explanation. Again, that also ties into my other criticism, which is that this is very US and Europe focused, and the Asian art market and the Middle Eastern art market in particular are not given as much due as I think they really deserve. We really do need to start writing about them when it comes to these stories about these gallery owners and gallery dealers in other ways. I think Don Thompson does a good job of kind of hinting at it in his book, although it's been a while since I've read that, and definitely there are other books that talk about that market, but if he's not going to talk about the influence that that market has and is having, especially now, especially within the last 10 years, then I feel like that's kind of a blind spot of this book. It didn't stop me from enjoying this book, though. There's just so much in here that is so riveting and so exciting to read for me, because I mean, I'll be frankly honest, I'm an art historian. I have read a lot of different biographies of Jeff Koons and Damien Hirst, and I've read a lot about the contemporary art world and about kind of the biennales and things like that, all these fairs. I have read a lot, and this was new and fresh because it took a spot in the art market to focus on dealers and do something that other books were not going to do. That means it's probably not for most people, but for me, I ended up giving this book 5 stars. I found it extremely exciting to read. As always, I'm going to close out this nonfiction micro-review by sharing my favorite fun fact that I learned while reading this book, and that is that Larry Gagosian and Cy Twombly, the dealer and the artist, who achieved massive amounts of fame, one of their favorite pastimes and hobbies to do together is to wander around a Walmart superstore. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. I would love to know if you yourself had read Boom, because I know it's a new book. A lot of people are starting to get interested in it. Or if you've been reading anything else really exciting recently, or if you have any ideas for what else I might put on my art history TBR now that I've knocked a few of them off of the list. Thank you very much for watching. Bye!